Hey guys, Walt Wagner here with TAV again. Today we are sending home another TRD Pro Blue Tacoma this time. If you remember, a couple years ago we did a Forerunner, stage 1 on a Forerunner with a supercharger and some goose gear stuff. This time we're doing a Tacoma, and it's a stage 1 as well. We're going to go basically front to back and kind of cover all the things we did to this one, and kind of let you know what he had in this before and why he came to wanting to run a stage 1. And he's going to notice a drastic difference in this. So kind of starting out, this customer had a stock TRD Pro truck. As you'll notice, it has the TRD Pro snorkel and all that stuff on it. And he carries a small off-road trailer, and in the back of the truck he's got a truck vault drawer slide with gear in it, can end up weighing a lot. But he's also got an ARE top on the bed. So with the stock suspension set up, he was squatting pretty good in the back, and he kept contacting his bump stops when he would just, go off-road. But then if he put the trailer on there, he was just almost resting on the bump stop. So it was a terrible ride with the factory TRD Pro suspension that was in it, which is expected because it's now carrying a lot more weight. But with that being said, knowing that amount of weight that he's carrying, we were able to tune the suspension with a custom spring pack and custom valve shocks, Kings. And that's all part of our stage 1 setup on this truck. Kind of moving front to back though, starting with our front bumper, he's running the aluminum CBI front bumper with the full set of hoops on it. So it's protecting the grille, protecting the headlights, and it's a good clean look to it, without being too big of a hoop, too invasive. We kind of went minimalist on the lighting for right now. It's running the Squadron Pro in an amber driving combo pattern in place of the factory fog lights. So we wire that into the factory fog light switch so as to not introduce any new switches if we don't have to on the dash. And it's a nice clean setup. Highly functional fog light, especially when they're amber. If you run into any kind of snow or drive it any kind of snow, it's good day or night. You can kind of notice on the front of the CBI bumper, it's got the light cut out in the top portion of the bumper there. We tend to not run a light bar in that, so you can clearly look in right now and see the drum of the winch. And that is a very functional aspect of, if you have a winch there, you want to be able to see what's going on in your drum. If you're working at night or anything like that, typically we'll put a light in there as well, so you can actually just glance in and see what's going on in the drum. We've got a flip-up bracket here for the license plate, so you can access the Factor 55 Ultra Hook, and we tend to run those on almost every one of our builds. It's just a very functional piece of recovery kit there. You can do many different things with that. We're using the factory TRD Pro skid plate on this in conjunction with RCI's skid plates. So you've got the factory TRD skid plate up front for the IFS portion. Behind that, directly behind that, you have a transmission and transfer case skid, and we're also running the fuel tank skid from RCI as well, the aluminum. So this customer really likes the aesthetic of the multicam patterns that we've been using on our own personal trucks, our company trucks. And so we had some material, and we went ahead and he wanted to do the hood blackout on this, so he actually had us wrap the entire hood with multicam black. And he liked the contrast of our logo on there, the Topo logo of ours. So kind of turns out pretty good. Black multicam on a blue truck with all black components looks pretty nice, I think. And moving into the engine compartment, we have the off-grid engineering dual battery system in here that we incorporated a little bit different terminal clamps and things like that to kind of keep everything strong and clean when you have a wire harness hooked up to it. So we tend to run all of our auxiliary components off of our auxiliary battery, and we want to leave the starting battery to do nothing but start the truck. That's its primary job. With that dual battery system, we're running the Red Arc DC to DC charger, and it's solar ready. So this truck, you can just plug into solar anytime you want, and split the batteries also with a Blue Sea battery splitter solenoid there. We're also running an ARB compressor, you know, single compressors, primarily just for the front locker on this truck. This truck is running a 488 gear ratio, which is where we ran a 488 instead of a 456 on a 33-inch tire because he carries that off-road trailer, and the little bit taller gear ratio, it kind of helps you out on the highway a little bit more when you're pulling a trailer. Like I mentioned earlier, this truck was getting our stage 1 set up, and that consists of the Total Chaos upper control arms and the custom valved Kings with high-speed compression adjuster, and that adjuster is that red knob you see there on the remote reservoir. The spring rates on these are fairly similar in the front of most of these trucks because the weight doesn't change drastically. But depending on how somebody wants to drive the truck, we figure all of that out first, and then we send a build sheet off to King, and we get all of these shocks set up specifically for how that truck's going to be used. If we need to tweak it later, we can do that on the bench. But as you can see here, you can see the Total Chaos upper control arms and the King remote reservoir coilovers up front. The tire we're running is a 17 by 8.5 Method 704 Trail Series wheel with the bead grip technology inside the wheel, and a 285/70/17 Toyo Open Country RT, which is kind of in between the AT and the mud terrain, the MT. It's a good happy medium there. For lighting, coming back just a little bit further, the ditch lights that we're running are by Heretic Design Studios, or Heretic Design Studios, however you want to say it. That's what we're running on the A-pillar for ditch lights, and those are actually pointed off to what you would normally want to see out of, you know, beyond your A-pillars. On the roof, there's a 40-inch Heretic Design Studios light bar, and that's good for down the road, you know, and that's a white light. Positioned up high, it's kind of like holding a flashlight in front of your face, you know, it kind of helps eliminate some of the shadows across the ground. The further away from your face you hold your flashlight, the less shadows you have. So that's similar thought concept behind having a light on the roof. A lot of people don't run light bars on the roof anymore, but there is a purpose for that. And that's to see down the road a little further in front of you and try to help eliminate some of the shadows across the ground with a lower bumper mounted light. And that light bar is tucked nicely underneath the front runner Slimline 2 roof rack for the 4-door Tacoma. And this is the low profile version. So there's a standard version which has a little bit more gap between the roof and the rack itself, where you can fit the front runner accessories like the camp table and things like that. This particular one is the low profile version, so it lowers the roof rack tray closer to the roof, and that foot rail is shaped a little different to where you don't have the gap underneath that to fit a camp table. So on the sliders for body armor here, to protect the rocker panel, we're running the RCI sliders. We tend to run these a lot because they're very low profile, close to the cab, without sticking out really, really far. It stands out just enough to where it still makes a step if you need to stand on it and access the roof rack. But the kick out on the back, for one, serves a purpose of pushing the truck away from an obstacle. If you are using that slider to slide down this obstacle, it kind of helps guide the cab of the truck away from it, from the obstacle as you're passing over it, and then guiding the obstacle into the rear tire in a little bit better position. And it serves as a really good step if you want to stand up there and reach something on the roof rack. Moving on back to the stage 1 rear suspension setup on this truck, there's a Total Chaos shock tower and limiting strap system back here, and we're running a King custom valved 12-inch travel King with remote reservoir and high-speed compression adjuster on that as well. And when we mount these to when we mount the lower portion of the shock to the axle, we're actually cutting off the factory shock mount, and we're welding in the Total Chaos shock mount, which is extremely strong, but we're able to rotate that up in front of the axle housing to where you're gaining ground clearance underneath your axle. So now the base of your shock is now rotated up in front of your axle more and gives you a little bit more ground clearance, but it also allows the axle to droop out a little bit further because your shock is not the limiting factor anymore. It's the limiting strap itself. The custom leaf springs are made by Alcan Spring up in Colorado per build, and every spring rate is considered for the truck it's going on. So later on, if this truck changes weight drastically, we can go in and revert back to our build sheet on these springs, and we can change every individual leaf, its spring rate, and whatever we need to on that leaf spring pack to tune it later on. And we also do a U-bolt flip kit, and we point the U-bolts up instead of pointing down towards the ground. So we want to try to eliminate any kind of drag hazard underneath the axle, if at all possible. With our stage 1, as what you see here for the stage 1 is the same across the board from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3 on the Tacomas and the Tundras. It's all the same, except for the stage 3 is on the Tacoma would be a Curry rear axle, F9 axle housing, and rear disc brake conversion. This stage 1 essentially is the exact same across the board suspension wise. For the armor on the back of the truck, we're running a CBI high clearance rear bumper and dual swing out. And the nice thing about the high clearance bumpers is you actually have to trim the bed sides, and it pushes the bumper all the way up to where the wheel arch is and the fender flare is. So it protects the whole rear quarter panel basically of the truck. A lot of times we won't run those on the stage 2 or stage 3 trucks if you're getting fiberglass bed sides, because the bedside is shaped totally different than the factory bedside. On the factory bedsides, these high clearance bumpers look really nice, and they serve a nice purpose. For the lighting on the back, we've got backup lights or like a work light. They're not connected to your reverse light, but it's on its own switch. So we're running the S2 Sport in a very diffused type pattern. So this really lights up a lot of area behind the truck at night, and it's a very functional rear light back there. On the receiver hitch, there's a receiver hitch built into these, so we've got another flip up license plate bracket right here, so you have a typical 2-inch receiver, and then it's kind of hidden away. For the top of his ARE topper, he has a small rooftop tent that he likes to put on his crossbars, and that comes off and goes on quite often when he's not using the trailer. But he also wanted an amber S2 Pro chase light. That's extremely effective during the day in a lot of dust. If you're driving with several people and you're in a lot of silty roads and you want them to be able to see you, an amber light really stands out well and catches your eye really well, and that one's up high so you can definitely see it. That also works well in a heavy snowstorm like we had last night. A lot of driving snow, and amber light really cuts through the snow without flashing out like a white light will. So it's a very functional safety feature as far as like a chase light goes. For the interior, we try to keep everything really clean and simple like we normally do. So on the dash, you'll see a powered Expedition Essentials mount, accessories mount. So you've got 2 USBs in the center of it, and then a few mounts for RAM mounts and different things like that, cell phone holders, GPS, whatever it may be. And then that's where we mounted our HD S-Pod switch panel. It's 8 switches, and they're more of like a rubber switch, so you can actually feel the physical switch itself. So you don't have to take your eyes off the road to hit the switch that you need. You can actually just reach up there and feel it. So we're running the ARB air compressor for the front locker itself, the rear bumper lights, and then the amber light on the roof in the back. Ditch light bracket, ditch lights are right here, and then the light bar right above us on the roof is all powered off of the S-Pod. This unit can also be used through your cell phone on an app, which you can power when you're outside the truck. So if you're at camp or something like that and you wanted to run a work light or something, you could just pull your phone out and use that. So one aspect that is kind of the unsung hero here is once you have a truck built and you've got a lot of money and time spent in your investment here, you want to protect it. We don't work with car alarms, but we work with Revelco, and this is a fob that you can pull out. This is set up specifically for your truck. Without this fob, you cannot start this truck. It doesn't kill the power altogether, it just kills the ability for the truck to run. So somebody would have to actually lift this truck up off the ground or drag it somewhere in order to steal it if they don't have this fob. It's got a notch in it, a keyway, and you can also use it by the little tab, and we also install these with Revelco right side up. So if you just have to reach in here, just turn it and drop it straight in, then you can start the truck.